Hey there.
Hello.
Have I ever made you my green spaghetti?
I'm trying to remember.
I feel like you've been there once while I made it.
Yes, it was long ago, so.
Well, I say I stole it from Kyle. This is not my recipe. Very good recipe, very easy. You just take frozen spinach, thaw it, drain that shit, put it in a food processor with a bunch of Parmesan, bunch of olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic, and you have basically a pesto.
Yeah.
The point of this is that I'm full of green spaghetti, which means I'm full of carbs, which means I'm getting sleepy. So you gotta keep me entertained today.
All right, so you're my after lunch class. Mm-hmm. Got it. My siesta class.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We can do it.
Okay.
We're going to be learning about something that, and I was telling you this before we were recording, that I feel like the Charlie and Always Sunny meme, like where he's in front of the conspiracy board.
Yeah.
I don't watch the show, so I don't actually know like what that's referencing, but
I don't remember. I've seen it, but it's been so long.
it's like the crazy-eyed, and he's got all the yarn things. Like, that's what I feel like, because we're going to be learning today about something called Operation Condor.
Okay, great.
All right. So Operation Condor, first of all, I was wrong before. It is not what happened in the Americans.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. That's how we tease this thing. That is actually also referring to some U.S. fuckery. Okay.
It's similar.
We were training Contra rebels from Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. And that is, in a way, sort of an offspring of Operation Condor, but it's not the same thing.
Okay.
Different thing. So right off the bat.
We fucked up, guys.
Yeah, but hopefully going forward, we won't fuck up as much. All right, so Operation Condor was a secret intelligence and covert operations alliance created in the 1970s, although it has far earlier roots that we'll talk about.
Okay. Sounds bad so far.
Yeah, it was in South America also. Military dictatorships there shared intelligence and hunted their collective political opponents.
Ooh, hunted. Okay.
Yeah. They were terrorizing anyone who they labeled as leftist subversives with kidnappings, torture, disappearances, and executions.
All right. Well, we were talking about it earlier. We probably should go ahead and do a content warning. Sounds like this is going to be a rough one.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Abby earlier, and I said, I'm going to be kind of glad when we're researching something relatively lighter in tone, which I know is not something we always do, but...
Yeah, Jesus. Okay.
Oof. So yes, content warning. I'm not a big proponent of just showing you exactly how gruesome detail everything is.
We don't need that.
But there's still really a lot of tragedy that should be brought out to show what this was about.
Yeah, we're not going to get into fucking body horror. Like, I will just stop you.
You'll just leave.
I will hang up.
Yeah, that's not what we're about, but we do want to kind of highlight the human cost of this.
For sure.
Operation Condor, so officially, it begins November 28th, 1975.
Okay.
And officially, it's as far as ending goes, it's a little more complex and kind of like tapers off.
Yeah.
A lot of people mark it as the end of the Argentine dictatorship in 1983.
Okay.
Although it kind of unofficially continues until 1990. That's when you have a particular kidnapping event of Salvadoran socialist Hector O'Kelly and Gilda Flores in Guatemala, which like basically follows the template of Operation Condor. So it can kind of be seen as its last operation.
Okay.
There may be more after that because this whole thing is a secret operation that is like tenuously uncovered.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if like 20 years from now we're like, oh yeah, well, we found some more.
Right. And this whole thing was very interesting to research. A couple of the sources that obviously I started on Wikipedia, but I really had to get like kind of more in depth here. Watched one documentary called Investigating Operation Condor. Director is Rodrigo Vasquez. And also I read a book, most of the book anyway, by J. Patrice Sherry called Predatory States, Operation Condor and Covert War in Latin America.
Okay.
And there were some other articles too. It's all in the Patreon. Yeah.
Perfect.
This will be super link heavy, so if you're wanting to follow along, join up with that Patreon.
Yeah, $5 gets you access to all the notes. We've had like several students like reach out and say like, yeah, I use these for class. So like, if you're writing papers and shit, this is what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So it's hard to uncover everything in the details. I mean, those sources that I'm citing, they're working off of declassified CIA, State Department cables and stuff.
Fuck.
All heavily redacted. They're trying to put together whatever they can. As far as the death toll of Operation Condor goes overall, we mentioned the things they were up to, so obviously they've got a death toll. That's also hard to tabulate, but as far as like an estimation, you're looking at somewhere around 60,000 to 80,000 people-ish.
Oh, that's a lot of people.
Those are deaths. Ultimately,
Wow.
It's unknowable. You're probably looking at more than 400,000 prisoners at some point in time overall.
Okay. Shit. Okay.
Yeah, because this is covering a huge swath of South America. Some of the dictatorships involved here are Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Later on, Ecuador and Peru will join. And like I said, later on, these Condor type operations will be exported to Central America in the 80s, like the Contras and stuff we were mentioning.
Okay. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I was doing some research on these regimes in particular because I just didn't know a lot about them. I was like, yeah, there were some assholes there at the time. But we can kind of go through, if you want, a little cast of characters here.
Yeah, that'd be great. We mentioned it last week, like our Open Veins episode like touches on some of these dictatorships. So that's pretty much all I know about this. So yeah.
Okay. So let's go through this Hall of Infamy.
Who's up first? Their Pokemon card.
Yes. Pokemon number 1, Argentina. In 1976, they had a coup that was supported by the United States. Surprise, surprise.
Classic.
And the country was governed by what was called the National Reorganization Process,
Okay.
which was a military junta,
Okay.
led by several dictators of the armed forces. One of the main ones is a guy named Jorge Rafael Videla.
Okay.
From 1976 to 1981. The whole thing lasts till 83 before they open back up to democratic elections and stuff.
Shit. Okay.
These guys are, a horribly repressive regime.
Yeah.
In Bolivia, you had a period of military rule from 1964 to 1982. In part of that, you actually kind of had some decent, generals that were trying to do good shit. Sometimes. Sometimes you had assholes. Sometimes you had good shit guys.
Okay.
But the main, I guess, villain here would be a guy named Hugo Banzer,
Okay.
who was a graduate of a place we'll talk about a little bit later called the School of the Americas.
Okay. I get a bad vibe from this name.
You should.
Okay.
And he takes power in a coup in 1971, a coup supported by the United States.
Okay, so we're seeing a pattern. From what I remember in Open Veins, and I don't know if this is the case for all of them, but is it because they were kind of dabbling in some socialism and they're like, we can't do that?
With Videla, the country, like in Argentina, the country was already kind of in a bad spot. It wasn't necessarily doing socialist things at that time. With Hugo Banzer, he overthrew a general, so in a way a dictator, but a leftist one, named Juan Jose Torres.
Okay.
Who was explicitly socialist and doing socialist shit, and that's why he got knocked off.
Great.
So Banzer's in charge for 71 to 78, and then they have some other assholes, but they're bad. So
Okay, yeah.
till 1982.
Shit, okay.
In Brazil, you had a military dictatorship from 1964 to 1985. They have a few bad guys.
Just all bad guys, okay.
Yeah. They also came to power in a coup. Supported by the United States.
Damn, y'all.
Yeah. In a coup specifically against João Goulart. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong because I'm bad at Portuguese pronunciations, but his nickname was Django.
That's a great nickname.
Yeah, he was a leftist. That's what
Okay, yeah.
Doing too much leftism.
Can't have that.
Got knocked off. Yeah. Chile, military dictatorship from 1973 to 1990. The entire time of that pretty much was under the rule of a real asshole named Augusto Pinochet.
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, he's the guy that came to power in a coup supported by the United States. This was the famous coup of Salvador Allende's democratically elected socialist government in 1973. In Paraguay, you had the time period was called El Stronato,
Okay.
which was the rule of a fellow named Alfredo Stroessner.
Okay.
And he kind of came to power in a coup of his own. I mean, it wasn't like U.S. backed, really.
Oh, he did his own thing solo.
Yeah, a solo act. He had a lot to go on. Like, they had been doing coups previously. It was very unstable. Like the open veins of Latin America showed us, that is not just because they were bad at fucking government. It was because it was designed.
Yeah, yeah. This is like when you find out that like the same producer worked with all these different artists or something. You're like, these songs all kind of sound the same. I wonder why.
Yeah, yeah. What else do we have? In Uruguay, you had a civic military dictatorship. That's what they call their time period from 1973 to 1985. Various assholes in charge there. In Ecuador, you had military governments from 1972 to 1979, brought about by a coup by a fellow named Guillermo Rodriguez, who was a graduate of the School of Americas.
Sounds bad.
In Peru, you had a military dictatorship from 1968 to 1980. One of the main guys there that's implicated in the Condor stuff is Francisco Morales Bermudez.
Okay.
In Honduras, you had a military dictatorship from 1963 to 1982. In Guatemala, same thing, but from 1970 to 85. And in Nicaragua, you actually had a left-leaning socialist kind of government, but the Contras were like an anti-government force that the U.S. was backing in the 80s.
Yeah.
They won't come onto the scene till after
later.
Condor, really. But just to set the scene,
It's a lot.
South America, specifically the region they call the Southern Cone, the very bottom part of South America, was dominated by military dictators who had come to power in coups either tacitly or explicitly backed by the United States for the most part. And if they weren't backed by the United States in terms of coming to power, they were backed by the United States once they were in power.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll see just how explicitly here. Like, oof, it's a lot.
So what was, I mean, we talked about like the being anti like leftist and stuff. Was that like the main reason we were just like, well, let's go fuck this up?
Well,
we being the United States here.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like CIA reports and State Department reports and everything from the time actually say that they don't think that like the leftist forces in this region are very united at all. They don't have any connections to each other. They're not actually being financed by the Soviets or anything. They're just like nationalist sort of like liberation fights. So what it comes across as is that it's just really maintaining the U.S.'s dominance, hegemony in the region, empire.
Yeah.
It's just imperialism.
That sucks. Okay.
You don't want people in these countries rising up and demanding social reforms that cut into your dominance of the hemisphere.
Yeah, because that means like your fucking metals, like mining companies can't like go abuse their workers and like pay them like shit and not pay like tariffs and shit like that.
Right, yeah. They don't have to agree to your whole international order of free trade. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Operation Condor, we've set the stage of like the players involved. This coordination of all these different bad regimes is part of a wider like American-led counterinsurgency strategy against anything leaning slightly to the left during the Cold War. And like we said, progressive social movements, even if it's just domestically led, it has no Soviet influence. And most of the time it didn't, because the Soviets like basically left everything besides Cuba. They basically left on the table and were just like, that's America. We don't want to fuck with them too much.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's kind of like how the United States did in like Eastern Europe and stuff. It was like, well, that's the Soviets. I mean, let them have that.
Yeah.
But this is defended by the nations that took part, by their leaders and stuff, and by the CIA and kind of everyone who took part in it. It's defended as a necessary tactic to defend what they called Western Christian civilization.
I hate that.
That was a quote from one of the generals involved.
Okay, wow. I was like, what's going to be their excuse? There's got to be some way that I could be like, oh, I could see that. Like national security even. Like, no, just straight up. Just bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, they could couch it in national security, but the security, it's against their own people.
Yeah.
You know, so when they say national security, it's protection against these subversives that want to, you know, that are our political opponents, basically.
Yeah.
And this was a very broad definition. The dictator of Argentina, Jorge Rafael Videla, one of his quotes that I found interesting in this research was, "A terrorist is not just someone with a gun or a bomb, but also someone who spreads ideas that are contrary to Western and Christian civilization."
Oof. Okay.
So I guess we're terrorists.
I guess, yeah, shit. So, was that just their goal then? Like that? Like, did Operation Condor have like like a mission statement?
Its mission statement would have been take out. Was actually, and there are quotes from people from the leadership involved in this that was basically, first we're going to take out our actual subversives, political opponents, anyone we can say that these people oppose our regime. Then we're going to take out anybody who sympathizes with them at all. They're, you know, anyone who is sort of tangentially related, and then we're going to take out anybody who's indifferent.
Oh God.
They're going to get everybody in line, starting with the most radical, and say, look, this is what happens. Don't do that.
So, but when you say we, like this is the United States saying that? Or?
The United States was backing them up in doing this. Like the U.S. was basically helping them help each other.
Okay.
Okay. And ultimately, the reason they were doing that was because if they strengthen these regimes that are more or less loyal to them, and this is something we saw in Open Veins where Brazil was sort of playing this role of like the lieutenant of the United States, right?
Yeah.
If they can get more regimes to be like that, then they don't have to like lift it. They're not fighting with anybody. These regimes are doing it themselves.
Oh, well, okay. That's rough.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's bad.
Yeah. How'd we get here? What the fuck?
So if we're looking at Operation Condor, it's really got some antecedents in American foreign policy that trace all the way back to the 40s and the 50s.
Okay.
Because Condor is kind of an extension of something called stay-behind networks, which were set up in Western Europe after World War II, or at the end of World War II, really. These stay-behind forces were paramilitary forces and secret operation forces that were basically set up to do terrorism against, presumably against Soviet invasion, if the Soviets took over that region.
Okay.
Or, I mean, what they ended up doing was just against any sort of leftist activity, perceived or real, and sometimes just against the government.
Holy shit. So wait, who was leaving these?
Who was leaving these?
Yeah, who was setting these up?
Well, actually, several different governments had. We had our own. The United States had our own.
Yeah, classic.
I believe France and the United Kingdom also were operating their own. And this was a common thing, though. Nazi Germany, for example, had something like this set up. Operation Werewolf, they called theirs.
Okay. I hate Nazis, but that's a very cool name. I gotta give them that.
That is a cool name. It was bad, but...
they have a lot of cool wolf imagery. Sorry, wolves.
Yeah, wolves are unfairly maligned in that way. This stay-behind network would engage in clandestine propaganda, economic warfare, sabotage, demolition, subversion. They would help out native guerrilla movements of any sort.
Shit.
And the idea was that being paramilitary, they were not actually like Americans. So you had plausible deniability the whole time.
So you would like hire locals?
Yes, in a way. You could hire them. You could also just like
Recruit them?
Recruit them into your group and use them for those purposes. A lot of times they would have these groups hide weapons. Like there were found for decades thereafter these hidden weapon stashes throughout Europe. They also collaborated with former Nazis to do this.
Fuck.
They were all sorts of like just going they were violating all sorts of countries' like sovereignty by just like hiding weapons in their countries and everything.
Guys? It's like I came to somebody's house and just hid some weapons in there. And then I encouraged your spouse to like turn on you.
Yes, it's crazy. So one of the first examples of this is in Greece in the 1940s. They trained local guerrillas there. They supplied paramilitaries there with weapons. And later on, they helped the government there set up their own version of like their spy agency, their CIA, right?
Okay.
And that group eventually helps foment they do a military coup to take power in 1967.
Shit.
And Greece is under a military dictatorship for a while.
Oh, great.
Because of that. That's one outcome of the stay behind forces. They do it in Italy too. In 1948, the general elections there, the Italian Communist Party was going to take power. They were very popular. They had been at the forefront of anti-fascist, anti-Benito Mussolini activity during World War II. So they had a lot of like credibility. People liked them.
For sure.
So the CIA goes in and they pump millions of dollars to opposition political parties. They also go out there and put out crazy propaganda all over the place to try to discredit, do anything they can against these guys.
Shit.
I mean, they swing the election to the other parties. CIA Director William Colby referred to it as, quote, one of the most beautiful achievements of our organization.
Wow. I just want to reemphasize. We're doing this not to fight the Nazis or Mussolini leftover forces. This is against other. We're using those forces. Like, that's insane. Yes. If you're on the same side as Nazis and Mussolini sympathizers, like, something's gone wrong.
Yes, for sure. And that's a messed up part of that. And there's also elements of that in the Condor operations too.
Okay, yeah, because didn't like a lot of Nazis hide out in South America? Oh, shit. Oh, okay.
There's also a group that does some of this sort of stay behind activity in Italy specifically called Masonic Lodge P2 or Propaganda Do.
Okay.
Which sounds, this part is some of the more conspiracy crazy stuff sounding. And honestly, this could be its own episode if it were a little bit more tied with communism, I guess. But it is more of a like global anti-communist secret society sort of thing.
What the fuck?
And it is messed up. And it's got like so many, it's got ties to the mafia,
okay,
the Vatican as well.
Oh, okay. Didn't see that
and
one coming.
They murder people left and right to kind of cover this stuff up. People have conspiracy theories that one of the popes was the guy who like served for a very short time, like John Paul I or something. I think it was him, was maybe killed by these guys because he wanted to dive into the money. It's crazy stuff. But anyway, this is tied into, and they do have links to, a lot of their membership and everything has links to people involved in Operation Condor too. So that's just kind of a fun little link.
I was going to say, like, talking about, like, swinging elections like this, it does make us sound like we're fucking conspiracy theory nutso people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But, like, I mean, that's what happens.
Yes.
And it's so hard to, like, take people, like, with a straight face when they're like, you just gotta vote. And I'm just like, I don't know, guys. Seems like that's pretty easy to fuck up.
Yeah. That's one of the things to keep in mind as we go through this, and something that I've been kind of struggling with in my research here is how they would definitely not let anything too radical happen, and they never did let anything too radical happen in South America.
They wouldn't let it fucking happen here.
And so it's just kind of casting doubts, I guess, and just like, what did we think was going to happen with Bernie and everything? Like,
just saying, we all know Iowa smelled bad.
Yeah. And honestly, that was like better than it could have ended up, I guess, given what we're going to see here.
Oh, God. Well, yeah, we could have gotten kidnapped for having did you order this Bernie t-shirt?
Yeah. So those are some of the precursor things in terms of American foreign policy. America also starts intervening in the Americas. One of the first examples of this, is we've discussed on the show, is in Guatemala.
Okay.
Where Jacobo Arbenz was trying to do democratic reforms, trying to do some kind of like social programs and stuff, and land reforms specifically was what made them so mad. And, the U.S. did a coup there in 1954.
Yeah, that was the United Fruit one, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
those
PB
fuckers.
success. And I mean, for the United States, it was a success in terms of propaganda and actually taking the country over for their own purposes. What it showed people in the region, though, was that even moderate, peaceful, basically capitalist reforms were going to get crushed.
Shit.
So what they saw in that was that, hey, we're going to have to do like some violent revolution. You know, some people started to think that.
I mean, that makes sense. That'd be like if we got our all, like we were our all DSA, you know, Senate, like we were, all the polls were like, oh, they're for sure going to fucking win. Like, you know, we just had this grand mass movement of like electoral politics. And then at the end of the day, it gets crushed. Like, what are you going to do now, man? Can't vote your way out of this one.
Yeah. And I think that's what people were thinking then. Because after that, the next big thing you have is the Cuban Revolution, which had kind of already gotten its start, but like really culminates in 1959 when the communists take power, or when I guess Castro's government takes power and then reveals that they're going to be aligned with the communists.
What a power move.
Yeah.
By the way, guys.
But what this showed is that a popular armed revolution can actually be successful. People can and do start demanding more change in Latin America, saying, you know, we can take control of our societies for ourselves.
Fuck yeah. I bet sounds great. Bet the U.S. did not like that, though.
They hated it. Yeah. And so did the repressive governments that were there. They start beefing up their security forces against this suspected subversive enemy within that is backed up by this boogeyman of global communism.
Okay.
It's definitely infiltrated their society with nefarious purposes, and they're determined to prevent another Cuba from happening. And they decide, we've got to be ruthless about this. We've got to do whatever it takes to crush this, to keep it from happening.
Okay.
And so it's in 1960 that they kind of start bringing everyone together.
Okay.
The U.S. starts something called the Conference of American Armies.
Okay.
It's a meeting of commanders from 17 different armies in the region at Fort Amador in the Panama Canal Zone.
Another piece of imperialism.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. They start talking strategy, coordination, training, counterinsurgency. They are focused on protecting the continent from the aggression of what they call the international communist movement.
Okay. Was there any aggression from the international communist movement?
That's the thing is no. Like, the Soviets were just like, we're not going to go over there and fuck with them. Like, we have Cuba and that nearly killed everybody. Like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have big enough problems, basically.
Yeah, we're going to do our own thing.
Yeah. So they were definitely not trying to do this.
Okay, great.
There were, leftist movements in the area, but like the CIA's own reports were saying, they were small, they were localized, they were weak. They actually posed no real threat to the government.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool.
But this is where you start to see kind of the roots of Condor germinating. And it's like we said, that's in the Panama Canal Zone. The United States starts ramping up its activities in something called the School of the Americas, which you mentioned.
Okay, yes. This sounds like the worst anime setup ever.
It's a high school anime thing, but it's just like how to be
dictators.
American or yeah, just how to do imperialism.
Ugh, terrible.
It started in 1946 as the Latin American Training Center Ground Division. But by 1961, they were focused on teaching officers of Latin American armies how to combat internal enemies.
Okay.
And by 1963, they were focused on on expanding the role of the military in society. Basically teaching these guys not just how to be army officers, but how to run a country.
Ugh, okay.
Because, they're eventually going to back these guys up.
Yeah.
They'll need to know that.
Wow, okay.
They also, pleasantly enough, taught torture techniques.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. They had honed these techniques by 1963. They were starting to have experience with these in Vietnam.
Yeah, that was kind of our debut for that, huh?
They had set up there something called the Phoenix program.
Okay.
Which was like Operation Condor in a way, but in Vietnam. So it was like this stay behind network sort of thing in South Vietnam, to where when North Vietnam invaded, they would attack and do terrorism there.
Okay.
Thousands of people died in that.
Shit. Okay.
They also were teaching them stuff from Project X, which, I mean, that's just supervillain shit right there. Project X.
Yeah. Unless it's like the Powerpuff Girls. Like that's Chemical X, I guess.
Yeah. It's a counterinsurgency training program, basically.
Oof, okay.
So it was just a book on how to do counterinsurgency.
Okay.
All sorts of grim techniques in there. They were basically distributing these training manuals on how to interrogate people, how to torture people, how sometimes you got to abduct people to terrorize the populace and to stop them doing, shit that you don't like.
Oh, that is rough.
Eventually they halted these training they were like, this is a bad look. We shouldn't do these training manuals. Carter did that because he thought this is like a little bit of human rights abuses.
You think?
But not to worry. President Ronald Reagan resumed them in 1982.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Got to have those torture training manuals out there.
Yeah, for sure.
They also, this is another precursor thing to Operation Condor, something called Project Camelot.
Okay.
Which, again, half of this stuff sounds like it's made up.
Yes.
But it's not.
Okay, what was the other? Project X?
Project X. Project Camelot.
I'm still hung
Phoenix
up on
program.
fucking the werewolves of Nazi Germany. Like,
Right?
This sounds really made up. It sounds like a bad fanfic.
It's because they're all spies and intelligence guys. So.
Oh, yeah. They're all tough guys.
Yeah. Project Camelot was a project that they did, and they implemented it in Chile and then started to kind of copycat that into other countries.
Ooh, can I guess what it is?
Yeah.
Is it like they wanted to have a council of these countries, like the Knights of the Round Table?
That would be cooler than what they did.
Oh, they just really picked a name out of the hat, didn't they?
I think so. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, it doesn't really seem to have a lot of connection because what it is, it's a massive cataloging project.
Okay.
They disguised this as a college research survey. Oof. And they sent people out to just the populace and they asked them questions and they tried to basically get a catalog of everybody's political reliability.
I'm never answering a survey again.
Right? Is this person maybe subversive?
Oh, like, fuck, that sucked.
Definitely subversive, maybe subversive. Do they know any subversives? Like, that's what they were doing.
It's like mass line, but like the mass murder line.
Yes. Yeah. They're not trying to actually get your opinions to like help you. They're looking to come back around later. And so they put this whole thing together in Chile. And later they like when the dictatorship takes power there, the CIA is like providing them with lists of people to kill. Like,
wow.
That's kind of the first, one of these kind of precursors you see to making lists of your enemies to go after.
Still a terrible name. Has nothing to do with that. Okay.
Right.
I'm still judging. I mean, I'm judging for the murder too, but that, at least have some style.
Yeah. Some early examples of cooperation between countries.
Okay.
Comes about in 1968. You have the Brazilians, the Department of Social and Political Order, which sounds awful.
Yeah, I don't want one of those.
Where they were collaborating with the police force of Paraguay. And they were basically like, you guys have some guerrillas in this border region, like, let's work together. This is kind of the roots of Condor, because one of the big things about Condor is that you have countries, it's basically assassinations without borders. Okay.
So that's a crazy idea. All right.
Yeah, you no longer have to worry about, shit, they got over into this country. That's fine. Call them up and tell them, hey, I got some assholes that I don't like over there. Can you kidnap them for me? Boom.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So one of the big things about Condor is that it's not just those countries like killing people in their own country, which is bad. But this is like the reason it's kind of a conspiracy is because literally it is. It's like these countries
everyone's
working
like,
together.
It's cool, guys.
Yeah. And the CIA was instrumental in setting this up. They were their agents and stuff were constantly going through and saying like, hey, I know this one guy, Chilean general, you should talk to him. And like they were setting up these meetings and then would conveniently find a way not to actually be at the meeting so they wouldn't be implicated in that. And so there wouldn't be a direct like paper trail or anything.
Oh, that sucks. Okay.
Yeah. The whole thing, just like in the stay behind networks after World War II, this was supposed to be deniable. This was plausible deniability. Maybe this wasn't us. Maybe this was just some bad
Maybe they
actors.
happened to meet.
Yeah.
The worst meet cute.
Yes. So yeah, Operation Condor is officially, those are some of the precursors.
Okay.
Okay. It's officially established November 1975. It's a meeting called by General Manuel Contreras,
I've heard of that name.
who was the chief, the head of the National Intelligence Directorate, or DINA, in Chile under Pinochet. And he called a meeting of these different intelligence groups and said, hey, let's all get together. Let's see what we can do to stop the communist menace. And so that's what they did. They got together and they said, let's share intelligence. Let's coordinate. Let's work together anytime we need to round a bastard up and kill him.
That's really interesting. So, like, I had the idea in my head that this was a purely, like, CIA operation for some reason. I don't know why I thought that.
Well, it's something nefarious that America had a hand in. It sounds like it's going to be 100% CIA, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were defo invited. Were we invited to the party?
I don't think that CIA was there.
Mm-hmm. They defo knew about it,
but
though,
they set it up. They knew about it. And when these guys start calling each other on the phone, they certainly know about that. So here's some more details about how this operation some features of it.
Okay.
The Condor group, as it comes to be known, is made up of members from these different states. They're in the militaries of them. They're in their spy agencies. They're in their police. They also have civilian operators, and they all work with these various paramilitary groups in their governments. Just like in the stay-behind operations in World War II, they have these different local groups that they're working with.
Okay.
So they're not directly connected.
Yeah.
Typically, Operation Condor worked in 3 different kind of areas: surveillance and intelligence exchange. So we have a guerrilla that we think moved to your country. Can you spy on them for us and tell us where they are?
Shit.
Covert operations, which is kind of covers disappearances of people. Mm-hmm. And then what they called Phase 3 operations, which were assassinations.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
They kind of have a separate chain of command in each country. So each one is not really reporting to military chain of command or anything. It's just reporting to the top dude. So the top guy has all these secret forces at their disposal, pretty much.
Okay, so who is the top guy? Is that guy that set it up?
It's different in different countries. Some countries ran it straight through the top general of the junta. Some of them ran it through the chief of their intelligence agency. It depended.
Is there a top guy of the top guys, or are they all just evil BFFs?
Right, yeah. So there wasn't a chief of the chiefs sort of thing.
Damn, no supervillain.
No sort of top godfather or anything.
Damn, so I can't have a fight with just that one guy and
take the whole thing out?
The plot of the movie?
No.
Okay.
You'd have to go through each one. Collect your gym badges. This whole thing requires a lot of coordination. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And the United States definitely helps with this part. The technology part is where you have a real smoking gun for the United States. Okay.
Do we go lay phone lines down?
Yeah. Pretty much. The U.S. gives them powerful computer databases that they can use to hold all the information that they have on these subversives. They also set up computer links between the Condor states and a telex system, which I don't know what a telex system is. Do you know what a telex system is?
Telex system. Telex. I don't know. It sounds like a Mexican phone company because I'm thinking of Pemex.
A telex network was a customer-to-customer switch network of teleprinters, similar to telephone networks used. It's like a
fax?
It's like a fax mixed with a...
Older listeners, if you've ever used a telex.
Sending messages electronically. Its usage went into decline as the fax machine grew in popularity.
All right, baby fax.
So it's it looks like a typewriter mixed with a phone.
That sounds terrible.
Anyway, they set one of those up for these guys.
Wow, we were their fucking IT guy.
Yes. They also set them up with an encoding device made by the logistics department of the CIA.
Oh, like a
custom made, like an Enigma machine, basically.
Yeah,
a
I was going to
decoder.
say a codex. There we go. I've seen the Da Vinci Code.
Everything that they were communicating, we should have known about. It was also this was all linked to a U.S.-run communications facility in the Panama Canal Zone. Like, that was the nerve center of all the communications.
Oh, shit. So we were getting all their messages in the, like, you know, like you have your switchboard people and they're like, yeah, I'll put a Panama, let me connect you to wherever.
Pretty much. Yeah, probably a different technological way of it, but yes, it was all going to the same place. Like, and so later on, they'll come out and be like, "Oh my goodness, how did we not know about this?" It's like, dude, no, hold on. You knew.
They were on your family phone
set this
plan.
up.
You had the minutes.
It's crazy.
Oh, that's weird.
It's very truly the, you know, the meme of the guy shooting the dude, and it's like, why would these right-wing dictatorships do this?
Wow.
So that's one big link there. But that's not our only kind of link here to this. We are also giving, like, the United States was also giving training to people. We mentioned some of the precursors to that. They also had the CIA advising these intelligence departments.
Okay.
DINA in Chile, La Técnica in Paraguay, El Archivo in Guatemala, Department 5 in El Salvador.
Ooh, Department 5.
Yeah, Battalion 316 in Honduras, and Servicio Nacional de Informações in Brazil.
Okay.
All these advised by the CIA, like how to set
how to
up,
CIA.
how to operate. Yeah, how to do the shit.
Okay. We come along, we lay down their phone lines, we teach them how to CIA, and now what do they do with this cool new phones and knowledge?
All right, so we mentioned that they're surveilling people.
The surveys, yeah, worried about those.
They're surveying people in that way. They're watching them. They have spy teams go all over the place. And this is international. This is an incredible example of what people can do to work together, except for evil.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're working together, not seamlessly. Sure, there are some hitches, but like they have, Bolivians operating in Uruguay and Chileans operating in Argentina, and they're like just doing all this stuff. They have different surveillance teams, and they're all coordinating with each other. They are also, once they find out where somebody is, then they go and kidnap them. And usually it's a separate team. You got one person, one team surveilling, then another team, boom, boom, black van, you're gone.
Oof, okay.
No one hears from you. A lot of people were just disappeared in that way and never heard from again.
Oh my gosh.
They would take people to black sites, secret locations, to interrogate them, torture them.
Shit.
One of the more infamous locations was a place called Orletti Motors, which was this abandoned car garage in Argentina.
That sounds like a terrible Sopranos scene,
Yeah.
Like when they moved the shot to there, you're like, oh, somebody's getting killed.
Yeah. Yeah, and they would bring people in. They would do what's called the submarine, which was just waterboarding them.
That's what I thought that would be.
Which, of course, as the Bush administration told us, wasn't torture.
Apparently.
But it was good enough for these guys. Classic beatings, whippings, dismemberment.
Ugh.
The use of family members as well. Sometimes they would kidnap people with their family.
Fuck.
And utilize that in the torture.
Oh my God.
Sometimes they would not, but would still manage to, they knew they were surveilling and everything. They knew where people were.
Yeah, I've got a picture of your family sleeping.
Well, one of the things that the guy we mentioned before, Alfredo Stroessner, one of the dictators, one of the things he did was he would record on tape recordings, the screams of his torture victims.
Oh my God.
And then would play that over the phone to their family members.
Oh my God. This is literal supervillain shit.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone heard, like, how the fuck would you justify? Like, I don't care what's going on. How the fuck do you justify this?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, he would send the bloody garments of their relative to them.
Oh my God.
Terror.
Yeah.
Right?
That is psychological torture. That is just literal torture too. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, one of the key researchers that did this work, and he was kind of the center of the documentary that I mentioned before. A guy named Martin Amata.
Is that documentary available to watch anywhere?
It was. Yeah, I watched it on Amazon. It was on Amazon Prime.
Weird move, Amazon.
Yeah, and it's real. Like, I mean, it's kind of older. I think it's from the early 2000s, but I mean, it's good. And Martin Amata, he was a victim of Alfredo Stroessner's regime of torture.
Yeah.
And he had that happen to him.
Jesus.
And his wife, who had that played to her on the film,
yeah,
they told her, come get this guy's body. He's dead. And she had a heart attack and died.
Oh my God.
And so he survived
wow.
the whole thing and live with that. And we'll talk more about what his research and everything in a bit.
Wow.
But yeah, that's what they were doing to people.
That's horrifying.
Yes.
And these are all just like leftists, basically. They weren't in power. They weren't like doing shit besides talking about being leftists.
So some were militants. I mean, some were in militant groups, and
they're trying to be like Cuba.
You should not. Yeah, we shouldn't. We're not saying that anyone should be condoned for torture.
Oh,
but
God, no.
That's the kind of the
justification.
Right. So you could, I guess, come closest to justifying saying like I'm combating actual quote unquote terrorists if they're militants against you. Not by these means, but that's who they ostensibly were targeting. But they were also targeting. That guy was an educator.
What the fuck?
I mean, he was an opponent of the regime.
Yeah.
He said, this regime sucks, and was kind of a radical educator, but he wasn't a militant.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, anyone went, basically. Mm-hmm. Anyone who was loud about not
We want the militants. We want the dissidents. We want anybody who sympathizes with them. Just horrible conditions in there.
Yeah.
One of the more powerful things, I think, of that documentary was they were talking with people who had survived.
Oh.
That, and they were just they were visiting some of these places and saying, and they were different, the buildings now, but they would be like, hey, there used to be this set up there, and that's where they would take us, and that was hard to watch.
Yeah. Oh my God.
They also did what were called death flights.
That sounds bad. Is this where you're on a helicopter and you just shoot people?
Well, this is when when they would take people up in helicopters and throw them out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Helicopters, airplanes. This is, you may have heard this in really disgusting kind of right-wing memes that talk about free helicopter rides.
I have not heard
leftists.
that.
That's what they're referring to.
Shit.
They're just saying, yeah, once we get in power, bye,
What the fuck? What a horrible way to go.
Yeah. Oftentimes they would tell these people who were captured by them already that they were going to set them free, and then they'd be like, oh, we're going to vaccinate you before we transport you to the South. But they would actually give them like sodium pentothal and drug them. And then drag them up into their plane with everyone else they were tossing out that day and toss them into the sea.
Holy shit, dude.
People would be killed through all this Operation Condor stuff. Women who had been captured and were pregnant, they would just keep them till they had the child.
Oh, God.
And then they'd kill them and then take the child and adopt them out to regime supporters.
Holy shit.
Like high-ranking officials or whatever, and raise them. The murderers of their parents.
Oh, my God.
Crazy.
I want to reemphasize. I mean, I don't know about that tactic specifically, but they learned a lot of this shit from the United States. This isn't just look at these savage Latin Americans. I do not want that to be the narrative here. This was, they went to school for this. What the fuck?
Yeah. They were training the regimes in that, in the School of the Americas.
Yeah.
Before, during that whole time, they're training them in assassinations, unconventional warfare. A lot of the officers that were running that had themselves been trained by this French war criminal named Paul Osirisis, who was a war criminal from the Algerian War.
Oh, yeah.
Known for he had done death rides out there, and he was the one who was kind of teaching these officers who then go and teach these guys. And again, they were learning from their experience in doing terrorism in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were not just coming up with brilliant ways to inflict horror. Like, it was, they learned from somewhere.
Oh, that's just horrible.
Yeah, it's really bad. Some specific examples of kind of like higher profile Condor operations. Like we said, tens of thousands of people killed, so we cannot go through all of them.
Yeah.
One was Chilean General Carlos Prats. He was a supporter of Salvador Allende before the coup led to his suicide or execution. Carlos Prats and his wife, Sofia Cuthbert, were assassinated in Buenos Aires in Argentina in 1974.
Oh, shit.
They were killed in a car bomb.
Fuck.
A neo-fascist group called Militia was working together with Chilean intelligence, with DINA, that group there, and with Argentine intelligence and security forces, and a fellow named Michael Townley, who was a U.S. expatriate, quote-unquote ex-CIA, which no one's ever ex-CIA for long. And he had also done work with DINA. He was one of their assassins. He was involved in that car bombing of a Chilean general.
Fuck.
He was supposed to have, like, security provided to him by Argentina. But of course, I mean, like, they're in Operation Condor.
Yeah.
Like, he did not know that he could not trust them, but he could not.
Oh my gosh.
Another, a possible example of Condor, this is interesting. Like, I had never heard of this before doing research, but it's apparently a thing, and they've done investigations into it, is the very famous poet Pablo Neruda.
Oh, okay.
He may have been assassinated in Santiago, Chile in 1973.
Shit.
He was sick with prostate cancer. He was in the hospital. That's why he had returned to Chile in the first place. He left before, when the whole coup went down initially, but he went back because he was sick, and he left the hospital claiming that a doctor who matched the description of Michael Townley, he claimed this doctor had given him an injection and that he wasn't feeling well, and he suspected that Pinochet was after him.
Oh, fuck.
So he calls his wife, tells her this. His driver starts getting him home. He dies 6.5 hours later of a heart attack.
Oh, my God.
They did studies on him later, and they said, yes, he did have prostate cancer. No, he probably should not have died from prostate cancer right there. He did have like a infection of some sort of thing that was kind of rare that they didn't really know. But it was like, that's could have been.
Yeah.
This guy just offing somebody.
Jeez, I mean, we're really lucky that, like, Eduardo Galeano, like, made it out. Like, shit.
Yes. Yeah. Another example is a Chilean politician and critic of Pinochet named Bernardo Leighton. And his wife, Ana Maria Fresno Ovalle, they were actually exiled, or had fled basically, and were living in Rome, in Italy. And someone tried to assassinate them in 1975. Shit. It's this Italian neo-fascist named Stefano de Acciaia who gunned them down.
Holy
like,
shit.
Just out in the streets, just like pumped them full of bullets and left them, permanently injured. Bernardo Leighton was brain damaged. His wife was left paraplegic. They did survive.
Yeah.
This was like traced to Operation Condor did put that in motion. There's a paper trail on that.
Didn't they have that Italian thing too? Do you think he's connected to that?
Masonic Lodge. Oh yeah. He is for sure.
Oh my gosh.
He was a friend of Licio Gelli, the Grandmaster of PT Masonic Lodge.
This is fucking worldwide conspiracy. That's insane.
It is wild. Yes. That's why I was saying I feel like it's because it's all connected.
I have a question. So I remember at one point you told me that, like, Castro had like 1 million assassination attempts. Do you think any of them were these guys?
They did make use of Cuban exiles to take out but they're more focused on dissidents.
Okay.
So they weren't trying to assassinate foreign political leaders.
Yeah.
So much. but there is a connection to anti-Castro Cuban exiles that they use as those paramilitary groups to take people out.
Okay, gotcha.
There's one example of the adopting children out.
Oh, yeah, that was fucked.
Marcela and Maria Claudia Gelman, the son and daughter-in-law of Argentine poet Juan Gelman, they were kidnapped and disappeared in 1976. Their daughter, Macarena Gelman, was given to a pro-government family in Uruguay and only recovered her identity in 2000.
Oh my God, can you fucking imagine?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And there are so many more cases of that we don't know about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That they just did. We mentioned earlier Juan Jose Torres, the ex-president of Bolivia. He was the one to kind of trying to do some socialist things that got ousted in Hugo Banzer's coup in 1971, the U.S.-backed coup. He was then later assassinated in Buenos Aires in Argentina in 1976.
Wow.
Another kind of possible example is João Goulart, Django, that guy.
Yeah.
He was ousted in that U.S.-backed coup in 1964. Then he was living in Argentina in 1976 when he may have been assassinated as well. Jeez. He died of a heart attack, but later evidence showed that the president of Brazil at the time, Ernesto Geisel, ordered his execution via poisoning.
Okay, yeah, defo. Yeah, that sucks.
Yep. And last, but probably one of the more important Operation Condor assassinations, because of its high profile, bringing attention to the whole thing, was the assassination of Chilean Orlando Letelier and his colleague Ronnie Moffat, who were assassinated with a car bomb in Washington, D.C. in 1976.
Shit. Okay, how have I never heard of this?
It's not emphasized because it's a really bad case of, I mean, chickens coming home to roost, basically, right? It's empire come home.
Ugh.
This was set up by Italian neo-fascist groups Ordine Nuovo and Avanguardia Nazionale. It was also coordinated with our friend Michael Townley, and also with Cuban exiles living in the United States who had been supported by CIA money.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And the CIA knew about this sort of stuff happening before. Like we said, all this stuff is getting coordinated through their central base anyway. They know what's going on. They actually get like themselves exposed after that. Specifically for the Letelier assassination, Henry Kissinger, who's like a real villain of history.
He's the worst, yeah.
He was Nixon's Secretary of State. He's
just a bad guy.
He's just a monster. He had put together this order to express deep concerns about overseas assassination plans by Operation Condor. And he rolled those orders, those like orders to his ambassadors to tell their governments, right? He said, go tell them deep concerns. He rolled those orders back 5 days before this assassination.
Oh my God, he absolutely knew that was happening.
Yeah, he was completely in on so much of this stuff. He told Augusto Pinochet about the Condor and repressive measures that they were taking against their population. This is in 1976 when he starts talking about this, and he says, look, our basic attitude, I'm going to actually just give you a direct quote here.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So I'm not characterizing him. This is what he said.
Oh God, I can't wait.
He said, look, our basic attitude is that we would like you to succeed. I have an old-fashioned view that friends ought to be supported. What is not understood in the United States is that you have a civil war. We read about human rights problems, but not in the context. The quicker you succeed, the better. The human rights problem is a growing one. We want a stable situation. We won't cause you unnecessary difficulties. If you can finish before Congress gets back, the better. Whatever freedoms you could restore would help. He's just like, if you can, like, make it look nicer, go ahead. But
so when he's talking about human rights abuses, is he talking about them like, he's like, I get you have to do some human rights shit, but like, get it together if you can?
Well, he's saying we want, my line that I took from it, the quicker you succeed, the better, is get the human rights abuses done with and fast. Like, do them, fix things. And then, we're going to try not to give you trouble, but we have to make sure those assholes in Congress don't snoop their nose into this.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why I stuck to the human rights thing. That's why that stuck in my craw. It's because that's always our excuse for like fucking around. Like that was definitely the excuse in Iraq. Like, look how they're treating women, and like we got to go over there and liberate the people. And it's like, okay, whose fault is this?
Yes, we never look at why they're doing the things they're doing. One thing you may be wondering is, how do we know any of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because this is kind of a crazy, listeners, you might be just sitting there like, I really don't know, man. Like,
is this real?
All sounds bizarre. And it does. And I only knew like the vaguest of this going into it. I mean, hell, I got the whole thing wrong at the beginning. Like, obviously, the people directly involved knew about it in South America. The people carrying it out and their victims knew that something was happening.
Yeah.
And the return to democracy in most South American countries comes with amnesty for the dictators and their henchmen who had been in power. A lot of the regimes coming to power to try to tie everything back together were like, classic, let's move forward, not look back. So they tried to do that, pretty much sweep everything under the rug initially.
Okay.
At that point in time, you really didn't have a lot of knowledge out there. In America, pretty much all you knew about this was from a book published in 1980 by John Dinges and Saul Landau.
Sorry, his name is John Dinges?
Well, it's Dinges, so Dinges,
maybe? I'm going to call him Dinges.
And it was called Assassination on Embassy Row.
Okay.
And it was about the Letelier assassination, the car bomb in D.C.
Yeah.
And that had kind of uncovered, like, that there was this, like, conspiracy in this one case. But it didn't uncover, like, Operation Condor as a whole. Yeah. It was just like, there was some fucked up stuff that happened right there. That was about it. But this book cited an FBI cable. This was the only documentation they had for Operation Condor. It mentioned there was this coordinated surveillance and assassination program in South America called Operation Condor. And that's kind of it. This was like one FBI cable that they had. That was all evidence that existed at the time.
Pretty damning evidence, though.
Kind of, but also you can just be like, that was just one FBI agent. Why do we not have any other, like...
Because they're the FBI and they're good at hiding things, probably?
But the CIA would just be like, nope, that wasn't us. I don't know what he's talking about. You know?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, they would also just say that.
Yeah, that's true. It was very scant information for the time, and everybody was just like, huh, weird.
Okay.
In 1992, we have the uncovering of what were called the Archives of Terror.
Okay. By
the fellow we mentioned earlier, Martin Almada, working with a judge, Jose Agustin Fernandez. This was in Paraguay.
Okay.
And this is after the dictatorship. They're back in democratic rule.
Yeah.
They find in a police station outside of Asuncion, the capital, they find this huge cache of paperwork.
Fuck.
Just papers and papers and papers. And they go there. And it's, in the documentary, this is a really emotional scene. They actually flash back and show that because they actually went with camera crews and stuff, the media following them.
Shit.
And Almada is giving an interview in the doorway once they figure out that these are documents from the Paraguayan secret police.
Oh my God.
Documenting all of what had gone on, all the interrogations, everything. And he said, somewhere in there is the tape recording.
Yeah.
The one of my interrogation that they played to my wife that killed her, But they had over 700,000 documents in here, recording pretty much everything. I mean, it was meticulous detail. If you've ever heard about the documents that they kept on the Holocaust, down to a T,
Yeah, it was like that.
It's just so methodical. They've got photos, profiles of pretty much everybody that they had gone through.
Fuck.
And so they find in that cache of documents, they find an invitation. I'd like to imagine that it was you are cordially invited to.
Has some balloons on it?
Well, it could have had balloons. This was actually on Augusto Pinochet's birthday that they had this meeting.
Happy birthday. Let's do some murder.
Yeah. An invitation from Manuel Contreras, the head of DINA under Pinochet, to attend the foundational meeting of Operation Condor.
Wow.
So this was
The smoking
it
gun.
existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was 100% it existed. That did not yet uncover any sort of CIA links, any American links.
Yeah.
This could presumably still just be a bunch of South American assholes.
Yeah.
Right? But this allows investigators to gather so much more evidence and put together a case against Augusto Pinochet, who at the time was still alive.
Oh, shit. Okay.
He had been dictator the whole time of the Chilean dictatorship till 1990.
Fuck, that's a long time.
I think it was a couple years before that, he lost a referendum to rule for another 8 years. Mm-hmm. He tried to just keep going, but they were like, no, dude, we're not going to do that. So they had elections and he was out.
Okay.
And they start putting together a case because now they have more evidence of his human rights abuses during his time, during his rule. And so they start putting together a case, and he ends up getting arrested in London in 1998.
Okay, great.
He routinely had visited London. He was going there for like...
some bougie reason?
At that time, I think it was just it was a medical reason or something.
Oh, okay.
But he frequently did like just go visit former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who was his friend because she sucks.
Oh, wow.
To all our British listeners out there, I'm sure you share our disdain.
Hey, she died recently, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, I thought she died.
I thought she's been dead for a while, but people celebrate her death.
No, it was the anniversary of her death.
That's like a pretty popular thing on leftist Reddit.
It is, yeah. I think, no, it was that fucking Prince Philip died on her death day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're like, we got 2 in 1 today.
And so he got arrested in 1998. She actually sent him a bottle of whiskey as a present while he was in captivity.
Wow. Okay. I don't honestly know a lot about Margaret Thatcher, but that tells me all I need to know.
Yeah. When you're that friendly with dictators like Pinochet.
Jesus.
There's kind of a long saga about him and everything, but in the course of that, it's President Bill Clinton who starts the Chile declassification project in 1999.
Okay.
Because everybody's saying, we got to get stuff on Pinochet. He's this asshole. Do you guys have any documents on him and whatever? And there's this international pressure. Yeah. And his administration actually had to kind of try to push the CIA around to get them to release these documents.
I'm sure.
And they eventually do. It's like thousands of documents that they have, all of course heavily redacted. This is the prime source material, especially to Sherry's book that I was referencing here a lot. It's just an incredible amount of information, and that's how we know really like anything about. And that's where we get all the CIA kind of background to it. It's also separately declassified documents, so it's also like not 100% filled in.
The whole thing.
But that's how we know like the precursor stuff about the stay behind networks in Europe and everything.
So I bet like in like 20, 50 years, like we'll get the rest of it or something, like
some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least another piece of it being like, no, they definitely knew. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like that one guy was running around doing things, the ex-CIA guy, like I bet there was a bunch of those kinds of guys, and that's the only one we know about.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Most people involved in this did not face justice, right?
I'm sure.
There were apparently there's 44 criminal investigations into Condor across 8 countries, a total of 118 defendants convicted for crimes against 213 victims. I mean, the numbers we were showing before, way more than that.
Yeah. These are just documented ones and in one country.
But these are the documented, the actual, like they did an investigation on somebody. They convicted somebody. Mm-hmm. Very limited. Mm-hmm. Pinochet himself eventually they released him to go back to Chile for health reasons. He famously like stood up out of his wheelchair to wave at people whenever he got back because he was just hamming it up.
Oh my God, what a piece of shit.
But then like Chile goes back and forth about him, and they eventually put him under house arrest, and they're like going to charge him with a bunch of stuff. He dies in 2006 while under indictment, but he'd never been convicted of anything.
Yeah, okay.
Because of course, they just see their way out before facing justice. Ugh. A lot of Argentine junta members are also convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. And this kind of varies from country to country. Some countries, like I said, they initially do the amnesty thing, but like after a while, they're like, that's bullshit. We should get these guys.
Yeah.
And it's really starting with Pinochet that they start saying, let's actually go back and deal with this.
Yeah. That's crazy. So, like, they could not have found any of this if, like, they weren't looking in that one, like, police station. That's insane.
Yeah.
Why were they poking around in there? They're just...
Well, because, I mean, Martina Mata and this judge had been on the lookout for stuff regarding Operation Condor. Martina Mata, for a long time, was telling people, I got tortured by the regime.
Yeah.
And they did all these things. And the government and other people would just be like, you sound kind of crazy, dude. Like, are you okay?
Oh, my gosh.
And because there are thousands of victims and all, but it's not like most people had this happen. You know, you might have a neighbor that happened to or something, but like there were a lot of people who were just kind of tuning it out and not really dealing with it. And so he was trying to prove he wasn't crazy, basically.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people died, so you have that. And then, like, a lot of people, I mean, they're fucking traumatized. A lot of times what happens with trauma is, like, you just don't fucking talk about it. You know, you repress that shit. Yeah. That's why, like, sexual assault victims often do not come forward. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably hard to find someone else in that situation.
Yeah. And that was one of the articles I was reading about him. He was saying, like, this is very, not cathartic, but, like, very relieving, I guess, to find, because he said, I cried with joy because people used to treat me as though I was making up everything I saw.
Oh,
said it was like an explosion of memory.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and again, yeah, you're right. We just would not have known this. And if all had gone well for them, we would never have known this.
That's insane.
That's the whole thing, is they would just not have, they would have just done it with impunity. And we were talking about the burning thing earlier. It's like, it makes me think in the future, what kind of fucked up stuff are we going to find out about? Because I mean, for a while there, right? It was just like crazy people sometimes talk about how the government's monitoring everybody's phone calls and communications and everything.
Oh yeah. And then we're like, oh yeah, they definitely do that.
Yeah. So like, what kind of crazy things are out there right now? Like, oh, maybe they do this, but it sounds crazy, but then turns out they do.
Yeah, would not be surprised at this point.
Like I said, it basically comes to a close when the countries return to democracy, with different, levels of violence involved and everything. So it's not...
It's complicated.
Yeah. That's Operation Condor.
Wow. That is nuts. I mean, I'm still, like, I feel like I'm on a cliffhanger because I just want to know everything. I just want to know, like, how far, like, in this we were, because... I mean, this is already pretty bad. We basically set up their little group. We were the fucking sponsor for their after school club.
Yeah.
And, we taught them how to do it. We set up the phone lines. We, like, definitely were aware of what was going on. That fucking assassination in DC blew my mind. Like, oh, let me just look the other way while you do this. Like,
and we told their governments, we're on your side here. Like, do what you need to do. Kissinger even told them, do what you need to do fast. Before, because that was in 1976, before the next government, because they've, that's already moved on from Ford to, it's about to be Carter, before they take power and they try to do things. Just get it done now. Why have friendly guys like me?
That's so fucked.
Yeah. You're right. We set the whole thing up. We basically groomed their officers into doing this, set them up on dates with all these other officers to coordinate this whole thing. We gave them the equipment. We listened to that encoding device was designed by the CIA. It had a back door in it the whole time. They could monitor all the communications, coded or uncoded.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like, that's bad enough. Like, don't get me wrong, extremely, extremely bad. But, like, there had to be, like, I wonder how high up people knew about it. Like, I just want to know the juice.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's pretty nuts.
Those are the sins of empire.
I mean, it's all to protect corporations, right? It wasn't just because, like, I love dictatorships. They're my favorite form of government. It's like, I love dictatorships because these dictators are going to let us do whatever the fuck we want, money-wise.
I think that it's, in a large part, money-wise. I think that's a big part of it. But I think the money part of it is also a component of the imperialist part of it, of global hegemony, of keeping your sphere in your sphere. And again, the way they were doing that was like, not we're going to rule these places ourselves, but we're going to empower these regimes that look up to us, that we've trained. They want to be like us. Their interests align with ours because they represent the elite of their countries, and the economic ties are there. Like, if we set them up right, then we don't have to bribe them or anything. They're already ours. Like, they like us.
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about too. It's just like the motivations, and like, I guess I'm just curious about like how much of it was like strictly like capitalist and resource based, and how much of it was like just a general power thing of like, we want to basically have all these, all these countries that are defo on our side because we're still scared of the Soviets. Like, is that part of it too?
I think that part of it, yes. Especially early on, America was freaked out about the Soviet possibilities. But again, I think that I don't know. I keep going back to the evidence that they had from their own field operatives saying, Soviets aren't here, dude. They're not doing anything. We're facing kind of domestic resistance and stuff. They're mainly focused on preventing those societies from doing social movements, from reforms that get in the way, that challenge American hegemony in the region, like American empire.
Yeah. Well, when you say American hegemony and American empire, like what are the like tangible outcomes of that, I guess, is what I'm struggling with.
Okay. A big component of it is economic, right? Is our multinational corporation get to do whatever they want to do. The balance of trade favors us. We get raw materials from you. We sell shit to you, just like what we're talking about in open veins.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Big chunk of it. I think another big chunk of it is geopolitical. So this is like kind of the, sort of Soviets thing, but it's just projection of power. Didn't matter if the Soviets collapsed thereafter, because we're still looking at hundreds of military bases around the world with no Soviet Union to oppose us in modern times. Like, America, any empire just wants to project its power outward. It's the classic, like, defend yourself by taking things over. So you have frontier provinces that you can, defend instead of your own homeland or whatever.
This was also in open veins where they would like fucking quid pro quo votes, like in the UN and shit with these guys. So like, you would always have backup.
Yes. Yeah. You could get what you wanted done even diplomatically by having all these legitimate states that are there that you've set up.
That's crazy. I had another thing. What was it? Do you think another part of this, I keep also thinking about that quote you had about like the Western Christian thing. Do you think some of it was like, we don't want these like leftist movements to pop off, because what if people here see it and be like, man, we could do that too?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I definitely think that that's a component of it. Like there could be entire other episodes on the CIA's domestic fuckery in the United States, the FBI as well. Like, these guys have, and we touched on this before some with COINTELPRO and stuff. And
like, just in this episode, they trained these countries how to do domestic terrorism and shit. So like, they're probably pretty good at it.
Yeah. For sure. I think they would worry. And this has always been kind of couched in the old, the domino theory is, right? If a country falls to communism, then the nearby countries might. It's like, well, so you're worried that like they'll think it's cool and want to do it?
Maybe your system's really not cool and we should go to a cool one.
And so they're worried that, if we let these Latin American countries start doing, the people there rising up and taking power for themselves against the elites, they've got to be seeing some sort of a mirror image of themselves there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's like a culture war kind of thing.
And because a lot of these societies mirror, in a way, the American project as a settler colonial situation.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
They're initially Spanish or Portuguese, and when they have their revolutions, it's not like, in most cases, not like indigenous people are now in charge.
No.
It's still the what are they, the Criollos or the
Mestizos?
What is it called? Creoles?
There's like, one time I looked up this is a sidebar. Time I looked up a chart of like the Spanish caste system of like blood stuff. It's crazy. It's like, if the woman is white and the guy is this, like, there's a name for every fucking combination of human skin. It's insane.
Yeah.
That chart is nuts.
Yes. I don't remember what those are called, but they had even a name for those.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but it's basically, a caste system. It's real fucked up.
But like the descendants, basically. The descendants of
the white
Spanish.
ones. Let's just go ahead and say it.
Those were the people who were in charge, much like the slave-owning aristocracy or the merchant aristocracy in the United States remained in power there. You know, it wasn't all of a sudden we had the American Revolution, the poor people are in charge of a social democracy. It's not that, you know? I mean, so you have kind of a mirror image of like an elite trying to govern a mass.
And they're seeing this version like go away. They don't want their version to go.
Right. So they're like helping those elites govern their masses.
Interesting that they like brought Christianity into it. I wonder if that's just because like I personally love to connect Puritanism with capitalism. So I wonder if that's a part of it.
I think mostly for them, it was Marxists being, you know, seen as anti-religious. And there was also, very broadly speaking, in Latin America, revolutionary movements tended to have an anti-clerical, anti-Catholic church bent to them.
Because, I mean, the Catholic Church there was doing some fucked up shit. So, like, understandable.
Yeah. So I think that's where they were most of the Christian side of it came from.
Interesting. Wow. Crazy shit, dude. You kept me entertained. You did it.
I connected most of the yarn pieces in that one. There is so much more. Like, I only briefly mentioned the P2 Masonic Lodge. Those guys are insane.
Yeah, that was nuts. Like, I did not expect fucking Masonic lodges in Italy to play a part in this. That was a twist reveal.
There are so many weird connections throughout all this. If you guys are using the links on the Patreon notes, good luck.
You're going to be in a rabbit hole.
That's crazy. The book, again, Predatory States, Operation Condor and Covert War in Latin America by J. Patrice Sherry. That's a really good source as well. What
kind of like lessons can we learn from this? Besides, don't do this.
Besides, don't do this.
Please don't do this.
Imperialism sucks.
Classic.
And America is a very interesting country to be hectoring anybody about human rights abuses.
Oh my God, yeah.
Besides that, I don't know. I think you can take from this, like, when you're sitting here angry about what has been done, you can try to do things to make sure they don't happen again. Like, try to do things to oppose empire.
Okay.
I mean, like, we don't have a lot of ways to do this.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say, how do I do that?
I guess, I mean, you can try starting small, starting with your friends. I don't think for large sections of the country and of the populace, it's probably not a good idea to be like, man, doesn't America suck? Even if you may feel that way. Because, like, for a lot of people, it's not their deal. But, like, if you start and you kind of raise questions, you kind of empathize with these sorts of bad things that happen.
Yeah.
When they're caused directly or tangentially by the United States.
Yeah.
You know, the cause of human rights is really popular, even not just among revolutionaries, but reformers, libs. I mean,
even right wing, the fucking Save the Children movement, they adopted out children. That's a pretty bad one.
Yeah. And you can get to a lot of people by talking about, you know, hey, you raise this example of human rights abuses you are saying are happening here, you know, this is bad. And also, you know, this thing that America backed up. And you can even use more modern examples of that. I mean, we were paragon of human rights in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Yeah, fucking Guantanamo, that whole thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you can tie those to America's actions softly and not just in a condemning, like, America is bad because of that, right? I mean, again, we might think this, but starting focusing on why America does these things, why they help dictators target leftist dissidents, but never the other way around. You know, they're never going after the right wing somewhere.
Yeah.
You can kind of slowly get people to kind of realize that in addition to just this human rights stuff, that they're against, like, the concept of doing imperialism anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think what troubles me about this strat, I like it, but maybe it's just because we grew up in East Texas and we know some security nuts.
Yeah.
people will always find a way to justify this shit. Like, even earlier, as I was saying, like, how the fuck do you justify this shit? I know people who'd be like, well, they had to do it. You know, like, people don't understand. I think I've been thinking about this a lot too, because I'm also watching John Adams on HBO.
All right. I'm interested to see the connection.
Well, when people get really pissed about like coups and treason and like subversion, it's like you only stay pissed about that if like they lose. Because if you win, then you won and now you're the government. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's really weird that like people are so pro security and so pro law and order that they are willing to justify literally anything until one side is so good at war that they win, you know? And then like, okay, I guess they're the new law and order, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think that you don't have a chance. Please don't try this strategy on right wingers.
No, that won't work.
That won't. Yeah. That's fine. There are other ways to maybe peel off a few of the like less informed right wingers that are they're accidentally right wing.
Whoops.
You can get some of them.
Yeah.
But you know, they're enemies. They're enemies. There are fascists out there, and they're just enemies.
They fucking suck.
Like, you're not going to convert them. Sorry. You can have your best West Wing argument lined up. It won't work.
I'm wearing a West Wing shirt right now. This is more for libs who are just like, America.
For libs, for Dems who consider themselves basically patriotic, America has done some bad things, but could be a force for good sort of crowd, right?
Yeah.
They're convertible, I think. Those guys are.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, I think for a long time in my personal like political journey, I was just like, I don't fucking know anything about foreign policy. I'm just gonna not play in that sandbox.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of liberals do that because if you start to poke in there, it's like, oh shit, we're definitely the bad guys. Like, you can't unsee that shit.
Yeah. And I mean, young, uninformed me was like, you know, a liberal, but like kind of hawkish, but like kind of America can project good in the world sort of thing. That's why maybe that's why I think these guys can be converted.
Because you've got fucking rad.
I don't know. I just think that if you can kind of show them like the bad side of empire, kind of start getting them to say, hey, we can make mistakes. We shouldn't, we should try not to make mistakes. I mean, eventually maybe they'll see that like most of what we do when we do things foreign policy wise is a mistake. That we should just be pulling back and like be abandoning empire. And that's, you know, maybe they'll get to that point. If you can start to make them question what we're doing and what we're saying versus our actual actions.
Yeah, I think that's the main point is like get them to start questioning it because they will come up with justifications of like, no, we're trying to protect democracy. No, we're trying to liberate the people, whatever. And it's like, all right, let's actually look at what's going on. Like, let's look at who caused this. Let's look at who benefits from this. Like, let's fucking pull back the curtain. It's challenging because like these documents getting declassified take so long and it's so rare. That like I'm telling you in like fucking 30, 50 years or something, we're going to get more info on way more shit. And like you said, we do have more recent examples in like Iraq and, you know, Afghanistan and Guantanamo and all that shit. But like, I just think it's very telling that like, we don't know the whole story of even this thing that happened in the 70s. Like there's gotta be more juice out there.
Yeah. And I guess if you are kind of like, damn, that was a weak thing that you could do to help. Here's a stronger thing you could do to help that we of course don't actually condone, but that's stealing documents from the FBI. That's how we know a large part about what they did with COINTELPRO and everything is people just straight up stole that shit.
It's insane. Ugh. And it really does make you feel like you're fucking pulling out your tin hat, like the government's hiding shit from us. Like,
right.
It's, it is not so but so.
I felt that way all week. Yeah, I was going around all week. I would go to Abby and be like, did you know Argentine intelligence set up their own Condor base in Miami and like set up drug front, like companies that were just fronts to launder drug money to send to their counterinsurgents in Central America? Like,
holy shit.
This was something that was free. This is part of it, kind of a side note, but it was in like the mid 70s. They used businesses in Miami as fronts to ship weapons to Central America. The CIA helped them set this whole thing up. A real thing.
And these are the same countries that we fucking shit on for their drug wars. Like, we literally did drug wars.
We were doing the drugs. Yeah. We were dealing the stuff, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, like, setting them up to do it. We backed a guy in Bolivia that in 1980 pulled off a coup called the cocaine coup.
That's a great name. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like a party. It was actually just this guy taking power and starting a repressive
that sucks.
Regime. But yeah, no, I mean, we were completely involved in that.
That's just nuts, man.
If you want to find out more, you can subscribe to the Patreon and get my notes. And if you really want to find out more, you should not do this, but you could, like in Minecraft, steal documents or something.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be the government. Parody, but also maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone should do that or not, but it would be one way that we would find out more. On the other hand, like if someone did that, we'd find out some stuff and get them to stop it, but they probably just come up with something else.
Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket. There's always going to be more dirt.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Ugh. Okay, that was nasty.
Yeah, that was pleasant. Pleasant's not the right word. Horrifying? That was horrifying.
Yeah, that's a little more accurate.
Yeah. Moving on from that, what are we going to learn about next week?
Well, next week we're going to return to one of our series that we kind of forgot about. My bad. Our Women in Leftism series.
All right.
I am actually still narrowing down the list. I am hoping to pick someone by like tomorrow or so. But yeah, we got a lot of good listener suggestions, and I had a few names in my back pocket that I was thinking about anyway. So I'm going to do some Wikipedia dives today and tomorrow.
All right. Awesome. Women in Leftism coming up next time.
You know, I ordinarily do thank you for doing the research. Extra thank you this time because this sounds like nightmare fuel. I hope you're okay mentally.
I am. Yeah, haven't had any scarring dreams or anything.
Great. You're good at compartmentalizing.
Yeah. Just look at that. So, wow, that was terrible. That was horrible. Moving on, watching something else.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. That was super interesting.
All right. Well, in the meantime, you can find us online. We are on Twitter at teachcommunism. We are on Instagram at teachmecommunism. You can send us an email, teachmecommunism@gmail.com. That's where you should go if you want to send us like a question for a future Q&A. We have a pretty good backlog of those. Might be time for another one soon.
Yeah.
Also, if you have a suggestion for a future episode, and you can also kind of leave those kinds of things in our reviews for Apple Podcasts. We got some episode suggestions there too.
Ah, okay.
As well as some compliments, which I love. So make sure you rate and review us there. It's a great way to help people find the show. Really helps us. My dream is to actually be like ranked in there. That'd be pretty sweet.
Oh, fuck. That would be cool.
But yeah, you don't have to be a user of it or be an Apple person to leave a review. You can still totally do that. Not a problem. We are on YouTube if that's how you prefer to listen to podcasts. And we have a Patreon. Patreon.com/teachmecommunism. For $5 a month, you get access to our notes. This week's notes sound very hefty. Lots of links, lots of sources.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we did not touch on everything because you told me the page count and I was like, holy shit, we're not going to finish.
Yeah. Anything that's not cited in there, assume that it came from predatory states. It may have come from the documentary. I put the sources at the top. That's how many sources there were.
Jesus.
So.
Okay, great. So yeah, you get access to that and our whole backlog. It's a very useful resource. And at the end of the year, that's going to go to a local mutual aid fund. So this isn't like going to us or anything.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Go read about something nice. Like go read a novel maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to go read The Hobbit, I think.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Something.
Something light.
Break the pace of just torture and mayhem.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being a good student.
Hey, yeah, no problem. Thanks for allowing me to like stim, I guess. Like listeners, I have to fidget. I don't know what happened to me as a human, but now if I can't like draw while I'm listening, I have to find something else to do with my hands. And I had to find something that would be silent on the mic. So I found a literal ball of yarn that my cat plays with, and I was just stringing it and restringing it. And that's what my brain is like.
There you go. All right. Whatever works.
It worked.
Thanks to all you listeners out there for your support, and you guys can catch us next week on another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session.
Bye.
Goodbye.